This is your video lesson for section 2.2. Go ahead and pause the video, annotate your learning targets, observe the correlating learning task listed here, and take a look at the vocabulary words that we will be using in today's lesson. All right, scrolling on down to our first learning task here. It says the engineering club at a local high school wants to raise money for a field trip to the Science Museum. The club members will hold an engineering contest to raise money. They are deciding between two different contests, the Straw Bridge contest and the Card Tower contest. The Straw Bridge contest will cost the club $5.50 per competitor plus $34.60 in extra expenses. The Card Tower contest will cost $4.25 per competitor and $64.60 in extra expenses. Task 1. To help decide which contest to host, club members want to determine how many competitors they would need for the cost of the two contests to be the same. We're going to complete the table below to help guide in the questions to come. So take a moment and see if you can fill out this table. This is basically just a place for you to organize your information about what you already know and what you need to know. Okay, so if you need to pause the video and kind of read through how I organized my information, make any necessary changes to your graphic organizer if you feel it necessary. Number 2 says write an equation that sets the cost of the two contests equal and then solve, showing each step. You may use an undo list if you'd like. So we know that we want to set these equal to each other. So we're going to take each equation or each expression that we've worked with or created and set them equal. Looking at our information up here, if we wanted to create an expression to represent the Straw Bridge contest, we know it would be $34.60 plus $5.50 per competitor. And we're going to let X equal the number of competitors. And then moving over here to the Card Tower contest, we know that it is $64.60 in expenses plus $4.25 per competitor, and we're also going to let X equal the number of competitors. Now we have these two expressions, and basically we want to find out how many competitors would it take for these two contests, their cost to be equal. So if each of these expressions represents the cost, we really just have to take them and essentially set them equal to each other. So grab a color here. Let's see, we got $34.60 plus 550x is going to be equal to this other one. This other expression that represents Card Tower is $64.60 plus 425x. And that is our given. That's what we start with. So if we want to get our x's together, we want to get our variables together, so to speak, the first thing we would need to do is subtract 425x from each side. And when we do that, we get $34.60 plus $1.25x equals $64.60 because that canceled. Now we're going to subtract. Let's get our constants together. So we're going to subtract $34.60. And of course, what I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other. Remember, my equation is split right here down the middle of the equal sign. So I get 125x is equal to, it looks like $30 even. Now to undo this multiplication, I need to divide. So I'm dividing both sides by $1.25. And when I do that, I get x equals 24. So try to remember what that 24 stood for in our situation, or excuse me, what this X stands for in our situation. And go ahead and pause the video and do number 3 on your own. Interpret the meaning of the variable and its value in the context of the problem. Since X represents the number of competitors, this means at 24 competitors, both contests will cost the same to host. So pause the video as needed if you need to copy that down or amend your answer slightly. Let's move on to task 2, making the decision. It says the engineering club estimates that they will have more than 30 competitors in their contest. Make a recommendation to the club explaining which contest would be the better choice and why. Use mathematical evidence to support your recommendation. So we know that 30 people are coming to our school for this contest. We know the cost of each contest. We want to figure out which one's basically going to cost us less because that's one we want to choose. We don't want to spend more money than we have to host this competition. When you're ready, go ahead and pause the video and try number 4 on your own and see if you can write up your decision about what you would recommend. Okay, so I picked a number for competitors that was more than 30, so I just went with 35, and I plugged it into my X, which is my number of competitors. For 35 competitors, the straw bridge would be about $227, whereas the card tower would only be about $213. So it's not a huge difference, but it is cheaper to go with the card tower. So I went ahead and worded my explanation over here, saying that the card tower contest will be cheaper than the straw bridge contest. And then I included mathematical evidence. I explained that it needed to be greater than 30, so I went with 35. I pulled in my actual numbers. And I'm going to go ahead and finalize the answer by saying I would recommend the card tower contest. All right, again, feel free to pause the video as necessary. Looking at number 5, it says the club will charge each competitor $10 to enter the engineering contest. So it's costing them money to host this competition. But when people come in to compete, they're going to charge them to come in. So they do have some revenue, is what we call that, coming in here. So they'll be able to make some of their money back, hopefully. This asks us to write an expression for the club's revenue if X competitors enter the contest. So again, it's going to be $10 per competitor, and X represents the number of competitors, so this is just going to simply be 10X. Now it says to write an equation to find the break-even point for the fundraiser. So if you break even, that means that the amount that you're making is equal to the amount that you're spending. That's what we call break even. So take a moment and see if you can analyze what the equation or expression was for how much money we were spending and how much money we were making, or our revenue, in other words. And then see if you can create this equation on number 6. Okay, so we were spending this $64.60 plus $4.25 per person, according to the information we talked about above. And then we're making this $10 per person for the people coming into the competition. Break even, again, means to set them equal. So I just made a simple equation and set these two pieces of information equal to each other. All right, ready for number 7, where we're going to solve the equation that we just wrote, and we're going to write a property or justification for each step. So if you need to go back and refresh your memory on that Introduction to Properties video or worksheet, maybe have that handout handy, and then pause the video and try to solve this equation and justify each step. All right, so I went ahead and solved the equation over here. Go ahead and compare answers. I'm finalizing my property over here for my last step, which was division property of equality. Started out with what was given, use subtraction property of equality to start isolating or combining my variables. Then I isolated my variable completely by using division property of equality, and I ended up with 11.235. So try to remember what question was being asked of you, and then if you could, take a minute and just kind of explain what your answer means out to the side. Pause the video if you would. They need at least 12 competitors, because you cannot have a fraction of a competitor here, so they'll need one more than that 11 point to compete in order to break even. Remember, this was our break even equation there. Okay, so it's very important that once we solve an equation, we're able to interpret what the solution actually means. All right, how much profit will the engineering club earn from 32 competitors if they use the contest that you recommended? So remember that profit is found by taking how much money you bring in. So it's found by taking your revenue and then subtracting how much money you spend. So by subtracting your cost. If you could, pause the video and see if you can set up that expression or that information. Okay, our revenue is how much money that we're going to make. So if you remember correctly, we would make $10 per person, and they're telling us we're going to have 32 competitors, and we need to subtract how much money this is costing us for 32 people to compete. So that's going to be $64.60 plus the $4.25 per person, and there's 32 people. So you're going to break this down piece by piece or simplify this. And let's see, 10 times 32 gives us $320 that we're bringing in, minus how much we're spending for this, which is $200.60 when we multiply and add here. So that brings us to a total revenue of $79.40. So not bad. They're making a little bit of money there. All right, number 9, the club treasurer was going back through fundraising records on Monday. The club made a revenue of $140. So this is just the revenue. Remember, the revenue, guys, you have to kind of try to pause and think about what they're really telling you here. The revenue, yeah, that's fine, is found by doing this 10 times 32 here. So try to keep that in mind. Let's see. They made a revenue of $140 selling contest tickets at $10 each. One person sold 8 tickets, but the other person selling that day forgot to write down how many she sold, right? And solve an equation to determine the number of tickets the other person sold. So again, we know that the revenue is represented by 10x, 10 times however many tickets sold. We don't know how many total tickets we sold, but we do know that one person sold 8 and another person sold T amount of tickets because we don't know how many. And we know that altogether we made $140 here. So we're going to solve this equation. We're going to divide both sides by 10 to get rid of that times 10. That leaves us with 8 plus T is 14. And then we're going to subtract 8 from each side, telling us that the other person sold 6 tickets. All right, that concludes your video for this section. Guys, don't forget that you do need to practice this material individually. So that's where you have your assignment number 2. This is the second lesson that we've assigned assignment number 2, so it should be complete after this evening or after you're finished with this material for lesson 2.2 and before you go on to lesson 2.3, because lesson 2.3 will build on this.